Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video over here on the Ultimate Dino Ninja channel. How's your all's day going? My day's going pretty good. Got back from a birthday party that my little cousin had, so that was pretty fun. But, I do want to give y'all a heads up in advance. I'll be taking a break at the end of this week from YouTube. Christmas break. I'll probably start around January 4th. The week after Christmas, I'll pick back up again. But just so you know, for about around the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be out of commission. Of course, after Friday is when this will go into effect. But in the meantime, I do want to shout out some people who joined my Discord and keep producing what ifs for y'all until that time happens. So thank you, those wizard what ifs, nobody at all, Tanjiro Sauce, Drago, Niche 1, Cerberus, Kill, KL, KL again, Katsu the Dragon Sage, Pigman Zombie, What If God _ Crow, Naruto, Mori Dan, Sleeping Amaterasu, Sleeping Black Flames, Crimson Keen 19, Loser 2.0, Tomosha Ashino, sorry if I pronounced that one wrong, Zan Kun, Nate Dog 423, random _ anime. Thank you all for joining, and if you all want to join and get shout out, go ahead and hit that little Discord link down in the description down below, and hit the other two links while you're at it. Go subscribe to my other two channels. I have my gaming channel over there. I try to post weekly, even though I know the last 2 weeks it kind of didn't go well. Sorry about that, Chief. I forgot to put my phone on airplane mode. But yeah, it kind of didn't go well. So I'm sorry about that. Yeah, but other than that, let's jump straight into this what if. So where we last left off, Izuku and Kirito and their new member, Asuna, all decided to join up. Kirito and Deku both got a piece of bread with some cream on it, but Deku had to real quickly go buy cream because he ran out. When he came back, he spotted that Asuna and Kirito seemed to be chatting for a little bit. So Izuku decided to step back and let his man go ahead and talk a woman for a minute. He's being that ween man helping out his bro, not interrupting. Eventually, Deku ended up coming around and saying, "Oh, I'm finally back. I got my stuff." When the conversation between Asuna and Kirito had stopped. Afterwards, Deku, Kirito, and Asuna all ended up going their separate ways. The next morning, they all got on their gear and proceeded to enter the dungeon with everyone else. They went forward at a pretty blazing pace, seeing how most of the stuff was already taken care of, and all they really had to do was clean up the little scraps that had spawned in between times. Luckily, that wasn't a hard thing for anyone to do, especially Kirito and Izuku, which all were relatively higher than anyone else at this point. Their strength was nearly immeasurable compared to most people, and even Asuna, who was their party member, was kind of shocked and surprised by this. Izuku and Kirito both quickly dispatched most of the monsters, and then they got to the boss floor. The man went over one more time what the plan was, while Kirito and Izuku really didn't care. Of course, Kirito, Deku, and Asuna were all part of a different group. They weren't part of the main group of people, but they were part of a squad that will come in to support when they are necessary, which Kirito and Deku thought was kind of like funny because both of them definitely outweighed almost everyone else that was there, so they thought the aspect of having to be backups were kind of funny. But then again, they both understood the point that there were other people there that definitely could hold their own and would probably hold their own pretty well. So they all entered the room. The boss showed up. All 4 of the health bars were lit. Deku got out his sword and shield. Over the couple of months, his sword and shield went from just a basic one to seeming to look a little bit more elegant with its engravings, almost taking on a lion-like head on his shield, and his sword seemingly curved in a pretty immaculate manner. Many would say that people would love to have his sword, and Izuku agreed. It was a beautiful blade, an excellent piece of craftsmanship. Of course, he knew it won't really help him much in the later floors, but he knew now it was his main blade, and he hoped he could probably pick up something that was very equivalent to the blade he had now when he got to the later floors. Eventually, Izuku and Kirito both ended up fighting. The health bar was finally at the end bit, and Izuku saw the blue-haired guy run up and went to go ahead and, try to solo and take out the final blow on the boss, which Izuku and Kirito both thought was kind of misconstrued at this point. Why not go safe? Suddenly, Kirito started to get a very worried look on his face. Izuku was able to understand this after him and Kirito basically being around each other for about 2 months non-stop. They both knew each other very well at this point. Izuku knew that something was obviously off for Kirito to have that look on his face. Eventually, he figured out what it was. That weapon was not the weapon the book had said. Kirito knew this. Izuku figured there must be something else behind it, but he decided to wait until his friend said something. Eventually, Kirito quickly gripped his sword as he saw the blue-haired man went flying backwards. The blue-haired man, which Izuku really didn't know about but definitely cared for, went on to his last health bar. Deku told Kirito to go ahead and try to finish off the boss or attack against it, and have Asuna follow up with him while he tried to go heal the guy. Izuku ran up and tried to heal the man. The man pushed away Izuku's healing flask. Izuku's like, "Drink the potion! Drink it!" The man shook his head no and said that this was his own issue. He shouldn't have done what he had did, but he had, so it was his own issue. This made Izuku very confused as he once again told the man to drink the potion. There was no reason for him not to. If he drank the potion, he would survive, but the man was stubborn and decided against it. Eventually, Izuku saw Kirito finish off the boss, and Izuku quickly ran up to go to Kirito. All the people started cheering and high-fiving and being quite excited. Izuku as well was pretty glad. He was saddened that one of their soldiers had died. One of their allies that had helped them to get to this point had died. But he understood that it was all just so that we could get to this point, and that crying over someone else isn't how they would want you to go on. Eventually, a man in the back ended up speaking up. This man was the same man who yelled at the beaters earlier. He yelled at Kirito for seeming how he knew about the sword and that he let the blue-haired guy die. Of course, Kirito didn't know what to say, and he was just awestruck at this point. And then he started yelling at Izuku as well, saying how Izuku just let him die in his hands, and how could Izuku do that? Which caused Izuku also to be very confused. Eventually, most of the group slowly started to turn on Izuku and Kirito. That's just when Kirito slightly crooked his smile and said, "Yeah, me and Izuku both are beta testers." This threw Izuku off, but he decided to go on with it, knowing that Izuku probably did this for a reason, that he should trust his friend's judgment. Izuku stood up and said, "Yes, we are. We are beta testers." And Kirito said how he knew about the weapon, because he had fought many enemies on the higher floors, and that him and Izuku both made it to the highest floor, and that they both were very well off and experienced. So then the man called him a cheater for his actions and his abilities, and this caused Izuku to almost become outraged once more. But Kirito smiled and said, "Yes, that's what we are. We're beta testers and cheaters." Eventually, one of the guys in the audience said, "So you're beaters?" As Kirito smiled, and then said, "Beaters. Yeah, I like that. Yes, me and Izuku are beaters. We're beta testers and everything." This caused everyone there to be utterly angry. Eventually, Izuku told Kirito to come on. Kirito equipped a black, coat around his body. He said he had gotten it from one of his drops. As him and Izuku were walking up the stairs, Asuna came up behind them. Asuna was confused and didn't know what to say, so Kirito beat her to the punch and said, "Asuna, go hang out with people that you won't be in trouble with. And keep grinding. Because if you stop grinding in this world, you die. Remind yourself that." Kirito said as he kicked Asuna from him and Izuku's party. Him and Izuku both ended up walking up out of the stairs, going on to the second floor. Izuku asked Kirito if he was sure. "Yeah, I'm sure. No matter what, me and you were both gonna get yelled at. We might as well put gasoline on the fire to make sure no one else messes with us. You saw how that man died. If we get too close to anyone else, they'll end up dying too." Izuku shrugged his shoulders in understanding, but was still kind of upset by the actions Kirito had taken. He knew they were necessary, but it didn't mean that he 100% liked them. Eventually, he would come to understand what Kirito was talking about. After some time, Kirito and Izuku both had trained. They had gone up a couple floors thanks to, the help of going in raid groups. And their, cheater tag kind of fell to the wayside over time. Seeing how most people really stopped calling them that, they understood that caring about petty fiends as that was not a good idea, no matter how you sliced it. So they gave up and decided against it. Eventually, Izuku and Kirito both ended up chilling, waiting for the next thing to happen. Kirito kept his black cloak while Izuku adopted a white one. When Kirito asked why, Izuku responded saying, "Chief, we need counterbalance," which Kirito kind of laughed about, knowing Izuku was honestly just joking around and just wanted to have a cool cloak like his. Eventually, Kirito and Izuku both ended up chilling and waiting. They both practiced a lot, and eventually one day during their practices, Kirito walked over to Izuku. It was during their lunchtime, so both of them were chilling and relaxing. Kirito had told Izuku about this new skill he got. It was dual wielding, which Izuku obviously asked Kirito to try it out, which he did. Izuku was very fascinated in skills. He knew almost every skill in the game, but he had never heard of this skill before, which caused him to, sputter in near disbelief. Eventually, over some time, Izuku and Kirito both constantly trained together. They both ended up becoming relatively not dependent on each other, but were so much in sync that no one could stop them. Tons of hit squads had gone after them in the past, some being from the notorious player killer group, Laughing Coffin, but that was about it. Time passed on, and one day while Izuku and Deku were in the dungeon on one of the lower floors, Deku spotted some people. They looked like a group of 6, all being attacked and almost murdered. Of course, Izuku jumped to the assistance of them, as well as Kirito, both of them coming to try to save the people that were obviously being attacked. Of course, after some close calls, Izuku and Kirito were able to relatively wipe out all the creatures that were attacking them. The man invited them over to a tavern on this floor, which Izuku shrugged and Kirito agreed to, mainly just because they had nothing better to do other than grind, of course. But Kirito and Izuku both knew that grinding wasn't the best, funnest thing to do, so they both went to the tavern with the personnel. The tavern they got brought to was a pretty nice one. It wasn't the best, but the tavern owners seemed to know the group, which Izuku and Kirito thought were very, well, weird. Eventually, the main party leader of the group ended up thanking Kirito and Izuku for saving them, which Izuku and Kirito kind of almost laughed at, finding the gesture to be kind of funny because, well, anyone should help anyone in their time of need. That's just the point. Eventually, the man kept rambling on and on about certain things, and he eventually started to ramble on about other stuff, which eventually slightly bored Izuku and Kirito. So Kirito and Izuku almost left. But suddenly the man said something else instead. He looked towards Kirito and Izuku and asked both of them, "So, you two, do you wish to join our guild?" Izuku and Kirito both looked at each other and both of them were like, kind of not really trusting of it. But eventually, Izuku and Kirito both decided that, sure, they'll join this guild. Much to the excitement of everyone else. The guild they joined was named the Moonlit Black Cats. This guild consisted of about around 4 to 5 members. It was a pretty nice and chill guild. All the members there were really nice, and Izuku found out that the entire guild itself was pretty pleasant. Eventually, Izuku and Kirito just constantly kept chatting and talking. It was pretty fun. They found out the leader's name was Kita. Okay, I can never pronounce this guy's name. Keita. Kita. Oh my god. With the other members being Sachi, Tetsu, Sashimaru, Ducker, and, well, Kirito and Izuku themselves. Of course, each person had a different role, with Sachi and Sashimaru being damage dealers, while Tetsu, Kirito, and Izuku were, of course, the forwards, doing most of the damage to everyone else. They constantly kept training, and eventually they trained some more. Izuku and Kirito ended up getting in pretty good with this group, and all of them had a pretty fun time. Eventually, thanks to the work of Kirito, Izuku, Sachi, Tetsu, Shimaru, Ducker, Ducker, yeah, and Kira, they both all gained everything else that they needed to, well, buy a house, and Izuku and Kirito were kind of happy for that. Of course, Kirito disappeared in the middle of the night with Sachi as well. Kirito always had a way to find females. Izuku never really cared about that though. But during this training, Izuku noticed something quite weird. He had always been very interested in skills, and he had obtained a new skill himself. When Izuku read it, the skill read as Ares' Blessing. It was a sword and shield skill. This skill was very vague and said, gave the user the ability to know everything that happens on the battlefield. Izuku found this to be a very weird skill, and he figured he would ask Kirito about it when he gets back. Eventually, after Kirito came back, he also came back with Sachi, which Izuku expected. In the middle of the night, Kirito and Izuku both left to do some private training. He told Kirito about his skill, and Kirito was very confused about it because he hadn't even heard anything. Kirito was a beta tester and he knew a lot of things, but then again, this wasn't the first time they had gotten a skill that was very unique and random to a point. So Kirito told Izuku to test it out on him, which Izuku did. He prepared his sword and shield, and then he quietly mouthed Ares' Blessing. This caused his sword and shield to glow a very faint green that then seemed to travel up his arms and into his eyes. When Izuku opened his eyes after blinking, everything was highlighted. Kirito's entire body was highlighted in a yellow color, showing that he was about to attack. It also showed that he had no skills he was currently charging, and he wasn't doing anything else. It showed that he was holding a sword, and that his inventory and his items and the skills that he had. This was mind-blowing to Izuku. He then looked at a random creature that had spawned, and saw the creature's stats itself, which caused Izuku to be once again very confused. He found that interesting as well. He was able to see all the creature's stats, its health, its everything. This amazed Izuku. Eventually, Kirito said, "Okay, Izuku, your skills seem to be drawn to being able to tell the stats of anything you see, and the skills the person has. That's amazing." Izuku shrugged his shoulders and said, "Yeah, I have to agree." Eventually, Izuku and Kirito both went back to inn and turned in for the night. The next morning, they woke up, and Kita said that he was going to go ahead and go buy a house or a guild hall for all of them to stay at, which everyone else was pretty happy about. They all decided to go ahead and do some grinding solo. They entered the dungeon on the 27th floor, and they all entered. Izuku, Kirito, Ducker, Sashimaru, Tetsu, and Sachi. While walking through the area, Ducker noticed a chest in a room. Kirito asked Izuku to see if his skills could trigger anything and see anything. Izuku said nah, he saw nothing, that the chest seemed to be clear even though it looked mighty suspicious, which Kirito understood. He told Ducker that he probably shouldn't even touch that chest, and when Ducker asked why, he said that it might be trapped, and if it was trapped, that could be a serious issue for everyone else here. Ducker, going without caution, opened the chest, causing the room to turn red. Kirito told people to use their teleportation crystals, but they found out when trying to use it that it didn't work. This freaked out Kirito and Izuku, knowing that this situation was going to get very bad very quickly. Tons of creatures spawned in, constantly spawning as Izuku and Kirito cut them down as quickly as they can. They saw as slowly, one by one, their friends all died. Tetsu ended up getting stabbed in the back by a dwarven miner. Sashimaru ended up getting punched by a granite elemental, getting sent into the wall. Ducker got pummeled by multiple small dark dwarven miners, and Sachi got sliced down the back. Luckily, Kirito and Izuku both survived. But Kirito was broken, and so was Izuku. Their friends that they had known for so long all died. Izuku picked up Kirito and teleported both of them back to the main area. Eventually, Kirito and Izuku found Kita, and when Kita asked where everyone else was, Kirito broke the news, saying that they had all died on the 27th floor. Hearing that, Kita climbed up on the nearest ledge and committed suicide. Izuku and Kirito couldn't stop him. The next couple months after that was a very dark time for them both. And that's where I'm going to leave it off, guys. If you liked it, hit the like button, and if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, goodbye.